listening to District Music.
Hello, and you're so welcome to the District Music Podcast episode 3. My name is Rachel Mayhannon.
And I'm Dre Morgan.
And we are delighted to be chatting today about the Irish trad revival. Why is everybody playing trad again? That's what we're going to be asking.
You tell me.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into it. Don't you worry. But before we get into the trad revival, traditional music, the history of all that stuff, I need to know about your weekend because we were both traveling. But tell me first about yours.
Okay, yeah, we did bits and bobs over the weekend. So I gave myself a little nice long weekend. I love going on little random trips, but I always like to build my trip around like a kind of like interesting, maybe like semi-niche kind of music act, because then you kind of get a real feel for like maybe the alternative culture of the city or something like that. So this time there was a booking by an artist called Meat Computer, like a very cool electronic producer, and just a music artist, and he was supposed to be playing in Zagreb. So I flew over to Zagreb. I'm not going there for the gig, but you go there like because of the gig, and then you have like a nice little city break, you know what I mean? Got there, like literally pulled up the night before, and then he just puts on his story that he cancelled.
No.
He cancelled. It took me about 13 hours to get there as well with a layover in Manchester. But it was all okay because supporting him was a DJ. Well, I thought it was a DJ collective, but it's actually just one dude from Zagreb called Low Income Squad, who has an NZS show that I listen to literally every single week. So ended up chatting to him for ages. I ended up actually interviewing him. And yeah, we just had a great time. And to be honest, like no regrets at all. Had a great time. So that was Zagreb. And then the day after, there was like a little rave collective there that had been running for like 20 years or something. And through my little nerdy little research, I figured out that they had something going on that night. And it just happened to be the last ever party for this like rave collective that had like run all the raves in Zagreb for the past 20 years. So I went to that, had a great time.
Nice.
So yeah, two nice little musical bits, and obviously then Croatia were playing in the World Cup there, so there was a lot of like good vibes, a lot of flares on the streets, things like that. But it was hot. It was 38 degrees. But yeah, Rachel, how was your weekend?
I was in Slovakia at a wedding.
Hell yeah.
So I flew into Bratislava on Friday night. Again, the people are so lovely, like so nice. And then we got a train to a smaller city, like an hour and a half away from Bratislava, called Peštěny. And the wedding was there, and it was just so cool because it was like a half Finnish, half Slovakian wedding, and like the traditions throughout the day were so interesting. Like some of the traditions I remember, like there were so many happening, but the ones I remember is like they would just like clink the glasses throughout the meal, and that means the bride and the groom would have to kiss. And we were like, shift.
That's quite cute.
Yeah,
That's quite
so
cute.
Shift.
That'd be like if there was an Irish version of that.
Yeah.
It's like shift.
Yeah, fucking like classic me having to like make an Irish version of everything. And then what else? Some of the Finnish things like were like there was loads of drinking songs throughout the meal, so they would just all burst into a song, and everyone in the room would have a shot. There was like a folk Slovakian band, and I took a photo of one of the instruments, and I've never I'm a nerd for if I see an instrument I don't know what it is, I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I studied music in college. I should know this.
Yo.
I was standing there, like we were dancing. I was like, what is that guy playing? And it was basically like a piano, but he was like sitting on top of the strings of the piano. Like it was like open, but like facing upwards, and he was just drumming it. And I was like, what is this? What is this? So I took a photo, asked ChatGPT, what the fuck is this? And it's a cimbalom, Cimbalom. Maybe it's a
Can you enlighten me with a picture? Because I'm like...
Yeah, you're like, this.
Okay, so, you know what? There's a very similar instrument that I just Googled here while you were Googling that. So
Yeah.
when I went to Estonia a few years ago, they love playing this, which is kind of like a similar kind of plucky kind of situation. I don't know if there's a hammer involved. I think this is like a figure. I mean, how do we explain this? You kind of... Have you ever seen like... They kind of have it in like Southeast Asian countries as well, these like kind of flat desks and kind of strings that you kind of pluck with a little like pluck thing or like a little hammer thing. I don't even know how to explain that.
It's like a pre harpsichord nearly, because it's like,
yeah.
do you know there are like so many traditional instruments in different countries, like are like versions of harps or flutes, or like, you know, they go back to like the medieval version of instruments. But I feel like, yeah, these kind of things are like, it's like predating harpsichords.
Just to give
Yeah,
the
here's a
sound.
little sample of what it sounds like. Yeah, it's used in a lot of like Slovak countries. Strongly resembles the inner mechanics of an open grand piano. So but speaking of traditional instruments,
Whoa,
what a link.
what a like.
If you spent any time in Ireland over the last year or two, you've definitely noticed like trad music is bloody everywhere. It's bloody. I don't know why I didn't.
In a fitting British accent.
British. I mean, I'll do a more Irish accent instead. It's bloody everywhere. That's my like stereotypical
is.
like, yeah. So it is. Like, it's not just an undercurrent anymore. It's everywhere. It's selling out massive venues around Ireland. They're headlining. Trad acts are headlining festivals. It's blowing up social media and TikTok. And like, sessions used to be packed by people of an older generation. Now it's packed by people in their 20s, cool, young, hip people. And yeah, artists that are like rooted in this traditional music are suddenly at the center of conversations about what Irish music is in 2026.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, like, you're not only seeing an appreciation for the foundation that traditional music was made on, but you're also seeing artists pull from that and make something into their own, you know, and you're seeing that in kind of non-traditional spaces and in non-traditional soundscapes. And I think that is like the real marker of a healthy scene is when it's evolving, you know. So,
Totally. And like, as you said there, it's like going into non-traditional genres as well, like, you know, which is really cool. But I suppose the main question of the podcast today is like, why is it happening now? Because for a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of trad musicians over the last while being in this job, and it wasn't, as they said, it wasn't always considered cool, you know? Like, a lot of us learned the tin whistle in school, and we sat through like traditional performances, maybe at like Cayley's at St. Patrick's Day. But then I feel like when we went into our teenage years, we like either drifted towards, you know, hip hop or pop or indie, whatever it was. But like, now obviously something has changed that is worth talking about. Because we all know that acts like Lankum and like the Mary Wallopers and Bird, so many acts like just taking over at the minute. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about that question. Why is it happening? We're also going to take a look back on the history of Irish traditional music. Like, how did we get here? What are the previous revivals? And then we're going to be finishing up with our dream Irish trad festival lineup.
Bonanza, fiasco.
Let's freaking go.
Extravaganza.
So yeah, we'd be curating that. And then we're going to finish every episode like the other two that we've done so far.
I'm surprised you got this far.
Yeah, what
We've
the
come
hell?
so far.
We're going to finish every episode with our track pick of the week. I've chosen a trad one. Doesn't need to be.
I was just thinking that I haven't, and now I'm like, oh.
No, it's good. You don't. It doesn't have to be everything trad.
Yeah,
no, it's
yeah,
good to
yeah.
sprinkle
We'll see,
some.
We'll see.
Some non-trad.
We'll see.
First of all, do you want to tell us, like, I don't know, like, I wanted to go back to like what are our first memories of Irish traditional music. Do you want to go first or I go first? What do you think?
Okay, well, I try. Let me try.
Yeah.
So obviously I moved to Ireland as a kid. So I moved when I was like 11. So mine was kind of maybe a little bit more less tapered than like, you know, someone growing up with traditional music. I was kind of just hit with it basically, without having much knowledge of Ireland or Irish culture in general. So yeah, I moved over and kind of like, yeah, like you say, like I moved over in about 2014, and I think even then, like, traditional music wasn't very seen as very cool. It wasn't really seen. It didn't have the societal respect that it probably deserved. So you kind of just like, I remember it being around, but no one really like taking it as seriously or seeing it for like the wider service that it gave to the community, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe you'd have like someone, even like the Bantry's a market town where I grew up, and maybe you'd have someone like in the market on a Friday kind of busking, playing the tin whistle or something like that, you know what I mean? Or yeah, like playing like even like the Baron or just something like that. And I think that was probably my first exposure, but it was never like something that was in the forefront of my mind throughout my teenage years, because we didn't even have music in school. Like they didn't even have music as a subject. So like those kind of things were never really, they just existed, you know? And even as a music enjoyer, I never really saw Irish traditional music as an avenue that I wanted to explore until a little bit later. So yeah, what about you, Rachel?
Do you remember what your first impression of like traditional instruments was when you were 11 coming
I
over
think
here?
like honestly, like a little bit silly.
Yeah.
Like honestly, yeah, like a little bit silly, a little bit like fun, but not like I would never listen to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like a little bit kind of like a good time and a little bit jolly, but like okay, that's fine.
Like not
Like,
cool.
you know what I mean? Yeah, like not necessarily like definitely not cool and definitely not something I was like fully intrigued by. You know, yeah.
I think my first like interaction with it, like, yeah, I think I was always kind of surrounded by it subconsciously, growing up in Ireland in primary school and stuff. Like we had Irish dancing classes at once a week, in primary school. But I remember for my first Holy Communion, very holy girls I am. No, I'm not. But anyway, but I remember I did learn the tin whistle for my Holy Communion, and that was the first time I ever held one. Just building up to that, and it was like something to aim towards. And then I joined actually a trad group whenever I was in
Yeah.
primary school, but it was the Corcahan Community Centre trad group, and I played the tin whistle. Myself and my brother went, and basically we just built up towards these like concerts or like Céilís or whatever. So there was Irish dancing and trad music, but yeah, that definitely gave me an early insight into like the sense of community and how it really was a tight-knit community. I think when you're that age and you don't want to be like stuck practicing all the time, like, you know, you don't have as much of an appreciation for it. But now looking back as an adult, I'm like, oh, that was really cool. Like they, you know, all the adults brought all the kids and they all sat around and drank tea and whatever.
I do think as well, maybe you brought up like it was a tight knit community. I think trad was maybe like people that weren't part of that community was a little bit more inaccessible. Like I
Yeah,
don't think I had like the cultural access to it as much as someone who would have been like born and raised in the community of Bantry,
that's
which
so
is like
fair.
kind of a shame, but I don't think it was done with like any like malice, you know what I mean? I
Totally.
just think that was just the way it was, you know?
Yeah,
So it's interesting because trad now is probably most aligned with kind of progressive and open and accessible kind of an ethos of that basically.
this
Like
is
there's a
it.
lot of like leftism and progression and stuff like that intertwined with kind of the trad movement.
Do you remember when you started appreciating it?
Yeah, like I think it was like I think like a lot of things you kind of need to see it to appreciate it. Like I needed to kind of see how it works. Like I like when I remember obviously I came to Ireland, had already been playing the saxophone for like 2 years. So I already had
Yup,
like
the
you're playing
saxophone.
the
I'm trying to
saxophone.
get Dre to perform the saxophone
I'm too
again.
nervous. I haven't picked it up in literally about 2 years. But I do be playing. So yeah, I'd already played for about 2 years and then continued that. So always kind of had a respect for someone who could play an instrument and kind of understood like the mechanisms of like that actually takes skill, you know what I mean? But I think like my appreciation only came like within COVID time and kind of within kind of a kind of maturation in my mind of like what like Irish cultural preservation is, British colonialism, these kind of things, and kind of tying it to that was only then when I had like full more of an appreciation basically, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
Whenever I worked on the Late Late Show on RT, there was some really special performances of trad musicians that, you know, I was really lucky to experience just like from working there. I remember standing at the wings of the studio being like, there's no other music that I've seen in this show that brings like goosebumps to people that much or like makes the silence in a room so loud. Like you can hear a pin drop, like the likes of like Christy Moore or like, I don't know, like Christy Dignam or Paul Brady, or like I remember even as well, there's a brother and sister that I'm going to talk about later in my Dream Festival lineup, Kiva and Seamus E. Flaherty, and they sang after the death of Aisling Murphy, you know, the girl that got murdered in Offaly, and it was just such a moment. They sang this like lament called Anna Kuhn, and it was like one of those moments where like a song really like I don't even know how to describe it. Like it really brought an emotion out in me that I didn't expect, and it was all through the power of the music. Obviously, with given the week that was in it and the really sad event that happened, um, that was part of it as well. But it just like showed that like when a country is like in mourning, sometimes only music can express what people actually
Yeah.
feel. Yeah, that was one of the moments where I was like, oh my god, Irish traditional music is so cool. Before COVID, so many places were closing down. Like, remember the Bernard Shaw closed down, Hanger, and then places in Galway like electric and stuff. But that was all happening. Then COVID happened, and I think people just because they lost access to pubs and like their community, trad was like that instant way of like feeling connection and familiarity to people.
I mean, maybe there's also a part of like, I remember when we were locked up and you could only leave like 5 kilometers, like I could only really walk around like the forest. So then I felt definitely a lot more kind of grounded to where I was from. And then when it opened up a little bit more, the only thing that you could go to is maybe like if you lived in a smallish town or something, is maybe the only thing you go to was your local pub or something like that. And what are the music that they're going to be playing in the local pub? It's the local like band having a little session or something, you know? So
Yeah.
maybe that is also a little bit of a vehicle there for like people kind of discovering the things that are actually quite close to home, but they've always kind of overlooked.
Yeah. And I think as well, like COVID obviously was that time when like I know for me, it was a time where I really did reflect a lot, and you just went home, you were sitting in the four walls, you might have been with your family, or maybe realized the importance of family and friends more, things like that. And I think naturally you do go back to your roots in times like that, when you're self-reflecting and stuff. But also, do you remember around that time, like a lot of things were happening, like Black Lives Matter, colonialism became more of a subject online. People were reflecting even on the history of Ireland and stuff as well. So I think like things like that also instigated this conversation about tradition.
I think Ireland, like as a society, as a culture, was able to find like breathe and take a step back and kind of self-reflect for the first time. Because if you actually look at Irish history, there's always been some bullshit going on. You know what I mean? There's always been something going on, whether it's like the troubles up north, or like financial issues in Ireland in like the 1980s. And then obviously you have the boom when everything's going crazy and neoliberalism comes in, but then you also have the massive crash. And then there was like the worries of like Brexit, how that was going to affect Ireland, all of this stuff. And then you kind of hit about like 2019, 2020. And that's kind of the first time that Ireland's like doing quite well financially. You haven't got these like far right mentalists like in yet, all of these kind of things. And it was kind of the first time where Ireland kind of had kind of like a good bubble going on where it actually had the luxury to kind of delve into kind of cultural exploration and cultural like reclamation a little bit more, maybe.
100%. And then I think also a big instigator of, you mentioned there things gradually opening back up. In 2021, the cobblestone it was threatened that they were going to knock down the cobblestone for
A hotel.
a hotel. So it's like that whole, Ireland doing well, the whole economic side of it versus tradition and culture.
I mean, if you could boil down like the perfect like culture war thing going
Yeah.
on, it would literally be the cobblestone versus a hotel, like a bastion of Irish traditional music and Irish culture versus like the symbol of what everyone's scared the island is turning into,
Exactly. It's like a metaphor for the bigger picture of what was going on at the time. And, if you haven't seen all the people that took to the streets that time in Smithfield, then look it up, because they basically are having a funeral for the cobblestone before it even happened. And it's just really, it's really harrowing.
If you do want to have a little look inside the cobblestone, then you can check the District Magazine YouTube page, because we have a lovely little 35-minute long like kind of mini doc, kind of mini thing from 4 years ago called A Night at the Cobblestone, and that was kind of surrounding that era of when the cobblestone was kind of was about to close down. Literally looked like it was going to happen, and if not for literally people taking to the streets, we would not have the cobblestone right now.
Yeah. A night at the cobblestone. Then, so that was like going into 2021, but like now post-COVID, like, can you walk down the street without seeing a harp tattoo, a clattering, an Aran jumper, a Palador jumper, people speaking about a Gaelic? I don't know if you can. I think it's everywhere.
I think like when I got my citizenship, that was maybe like that was last year. I was like actually very proud of that. I was like, yeah, obviously citizenship in like it doesn't change who you are as a person, but I think it does feel like yeah, it's like it's okay to be proud of something that you've grown up with, something that you're like, yeah, culturally you have been raised by, like why not give a bit back because that to something that's given you so much,
Totally. And I think it's really cool that like, just taking back to a sec of where we thought the whole traditional Irish music players in primary school and stuff, and when you were growing up in Bantry and I was in Monaghan, like we going from thinking that was so uncool to now it being so cool. Like even the likes of bands like Bird, people are being really smart about it because bands like Bird are bringing that modern twist. I'm not even like we're going to talk about the music in a sec, but even just aesthetically, like they are a Bird. If you don't know Birds, then check them out. They're 11 incredible women who are part of an Irish traditional band, and they are doing absolute bits. They went on a world tour with like Ed Sheeran and stuff, but their style, their fashion is just such a modern take on Irish tradition. It's given like this kind of like dark feminine energy, also just putting more of a feminine stamp on like the perspective of Irish music because like as we know it is a male dominated field as well. So like that is in itself is so cool,
and it adds nuance to what Irish traditional music can be, and it doesn't just pigeonhole Irish traditional music into one thing. And there's like there can be definitely like I think perception of Irish music maybe in somewhere like the UK before like this kind of revival and this kind of like level of appreciation increase was definitely like a very stereotypical like diddly dee kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like artists being able to kind of branch out and build on what traditional music already has definitely it stops traditional music from dying because it stops these kind of like pigeonholing and stereotyping of what traditional music is.
Yeah. Do you know what I think, all in all, is I think Irish people thrive when they're told you can't do something.
Oh, definitely. Irish
Aren't
people
they?
love an underdog.
They love an underdog.
Yeah.
Like the likes of Birds, they're like, oh, women can't be in music. Oh, let me show you they can. Or like whenever Ireland was colonized by Britain, they were told they can't do Irish music.
Yeah.
So they started doing lilting, and that's what like lilting is basically the human vocal version of like replicating instruments. I remember two of the members of Bird talking to me about lilting. And like they were talking about in Cromwellian times that the harp was actually banned, and it was also banned by Queen Elizabeth I. It wasn't like a law, but the actual instrument was banned, and it was like severely restricted how traditional music and dancing could be practiced. So yeah, it happened over three distinct historical periods: the Tudor conquest in the 16th century. And Queen Elizabeth issued a decree in 1603 saying, hang the harpers wherever found and burn their instruments. The second time was in Cromwellian rule in the penal laws in the 17th and 18th century. Cromwell basically, he said he criminalized the Catholic culture, language and education. So that was all more of like a religious side of it. So that forced the birth of lilting, mouth music, where people sang rhythmic instrumental notes using their voices to accompany dancers when instruments were unavailable or too dangerous to play.
What was that guy's deal?
What
was that guy's deal?
Oliver, get out. What are you doing? Then the public, the most damaging blow to communal traditional music actually came from an Irish Free State government policy. So it was the Public Dance Halls Act. And this was backed by the Catholic Church. So it was actually, it banned country house dances and traditional crossroad dancing because the church wanted to stop like unmonitored youth gatherings of like foreign jazz influences.
I wrote an article on this back in the day, actually. Yeah. And
Tell me more.
It was a bit of a nightmare. Like it sounds like, obviously it's a good thing for traditional music, but it actually like culturally was not a very good thing. I think this is like, I couldn't tell you that. Is there a date there, like 1920 something? Is it
1935?
1935. Yeah, I think like it was like maybe a quite a big contribution to like Irish loneliness, I think, and that was kind of what I was looking at. I'm pretty sure this is like 2 years ago now that I wrote this article, but yeah, it was like a fantastic thing for Irish traditional music, but I think at the wider extent, it was to the detriment of a lot of rural kind of artistic society, or even just people wanting to have a little boogie, you know.
But it kind of it encapsulates what we're saying. Like Irish people, when they're told they can't do something, they will rise up and thrive even more. You tell them they can't do something, they'll tell you we can do it 10 times better than you even thought. Because looking at those historical examples, like it makes me think maybe COVID was an instigator for the current revival. It's like, oh, you can't go to your pubs and dance and do traditional Irish music. All right, well, we're gonna come back in even stronger and even bigger than we ever were before. And obviously, Irish people have a lot of empathy for the Palestinian people, and I think that also brings a whole other layer to it because we have like this post-colonial mindset, and I think like the Irish traditional music has like become synonymous with the whole Palestinian movement, and like, you know, the likes of the Mary Walpers and Lancome. Mostly every Irish act that we see has a Palestinian flag on their stage, and I don't think that's just coincidence.
It's just fascinating as well about like the people that preach so much about what being Irish is, and kind of right-wing rhetoric and all this stuff are the most detached from Irish culture. It's so hilarious. I mean, obviously, like you have to, like, I don't know, you don't want to feel bad for them, but obviously they're consuming a lot of imported, we get off a bit off topic now, but a lot of imported ideologies and things like that from the internet, from America and stuff, but whilst also preaching that they want to preserve Irish culture and they care so much about Ireland. However, like actually the biggest vehicle of cultural preservation is by preserving, like, pagan artwork was stamped out when the Catholic Church came in. So that's like almost like, you know, 1200-year-old almost lost art form and music and things like that. And these are the ways that you actually preserve Irish culture. And if you're so worried about Irish culture, then maybe you should, you know, pick up a little Bower every now and again or something like that.
Totally. It really brings it down to the core of being human, you know, and it really puts a mirror up to society, I think. And speaking of society, we're actually just going to take a quick break right now, because next up we're going to be chatting about a brief history of Irish traditional music in society in Ireland, but also a look at the pagan rituals and what that has to do with the history of Irish trad as well. So you don't want to miss that. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the second part of the District Music Podcast. And this week we're talking about, why is everyone playing Irish traditional music again?
What's going on?
What's happening, guys? Right now, I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of Irish trad in Ireland. Would you like that?
I would love that.
Buckle up.
I would love
Buckle up to it. Because I actually, like, I find it so interesting because, like, I don't know, I freaking love history, and I'm like, it's mad how if one little event in time didn't happen, the domino effect of that, or the butterfly effect, whatever you want to call it, would be crazy. So yeah, let's just like take a little deep dive into how we got here today. Why is this trad revival happening today? Pre-1900s, yeah, like before anyone called it traditional music, there was basically just an oral tradition of Irish music. People like passed down songs from generation to generation in villages and communities. And there were harpers in the 1700s and 1800s that were mostly blind. So that was like the main source of Irish music at the time. They were blind harpers. They used wire-strung harps. A lot of them had really long nails to pluck the strings. Nowadays, harps are nylon, so you don't need the long nails. But basically, there was a time around like the 1700s that the tradition was dying again. Like, it's all so cyclical. Like, there was a time where they were like, okay, where are all the blind harpers going? They're carrying this tradition, but a lot of them are getting old right now. We need to keep this going. So they set up the Belfast Harp Festival, which happened in 1792, and asked all of the old blind harpers to come. And guess how many showed up?
I don't know, a lot, hopefully.
11.
11?
11!
Oh my God.
Yeah, so 11 people showed up. One of them was like in his late 90s, had really long fingernails. I forget his name, but he was like the eldest. And basically,
you know what? To be a blind harper and to make the journey up to Belfast,
Yeah.
I'm surprised 11. Like that's
Yeah.
still pretty impressive.
All of them were blind.
Yeah, wow.
So it was more so like a thing of like that was like the main work that they could do at the time, you know. But yeah, as I said, the main goal was for Turlough O'Carolan to notate the music. So there was a lot of there's a book of Planksties that Turlough O'Carolan got from this. He got hundreds of tunes, and some of them are named after O'Carolan. So it preserved all this music that honestly would not exist today. If you talk to any Irish harper, they know an O'Carolan tune of some
So
sort.
funny. Could be like literally could have been 10 years difference. If you tried to do that 10 years later,
Yeah.
all of those could have not been around and could have lost an entire
It's crazy.
part of music.
So it's like, again, the Irish people like stepping up when, you know, things are not going great for a tradition like that. But then by like 1800s, like other instruments, Irish traditional instruments became like central to Irish life, like uilleann pipes and fiddles and flutes. And do you know, actually, I only learned this in school, but I used to always be confused, like, what's the difference between a violin and a fiddle?
For years when I was a kid, I thought a fiddle was like a whistle thing. I don't know why, like,
It's so
I
funny.
used to think a fiddle, this feels more like a fiddle than this.
Yeah, I
You know?
know.
I'm just sorry, I'm doing like a
flute,
tin whistle,
yeah,
flutey
yeah.
kind of thing versus a violin-y kind of thing. And then only when I moved to Ireland, I realized the cat was actually playing a violin-looking thing. He wasn't playing a flute-looking thing.
Yeah, there's actually no difference between a violin and a fiddle. They're the exact same instrument, but it's just the context that they're played in. In a classical setting, like you hold it differently. But a fiddle is the exact same instrument as a violin, but it just plays different music. So you just call it a different thing. But yeah, so that was like pre-1900s, all of that. And then if we go into like the 20th century, like 1900s to like the 70s, Irish traditional music, again, it came under pressure because of like urbanization and emigration. And again, we touched on it there, but like the popularity of like American and British music coming in, like the likes of trad. So then a revival happened again, you know? So organizations like Ceoltas, Ceoltóirí na hÉireann set up in the 1950s a festival called Fleadh Cheoil na hÉireann, which I'm sure a lot of us know. And that, honestly, it set up the foundation for trad that we have today, because we all know this Fleadh Cheoil na hÉireann is still going. And then in the 60s and 70s, the like bands like the Dubliners, Planksty, all of these people, like Christy Murr, like there was like kind of more folk style, and then, you know, we started getting the hybrid of genres as well, like Thin Lizzy, but it all added to this revival again that happened in the 70s. And, you know, like there was like new instruments introduced, like for example, Planksty is well known for popularizing the bouzouki as a traditional instrument, and I'm pretty sure it's a Greek instrument. You know, we were talking about Slovakian and Hungarian instruments earlier. Obviously, there's a lot of crossovers with countries, like folk instruments and stuff. While originally a Greek instrument, it was adapted in Ireland during the 60s and 70s to become a uniquely Celtic instrument. Yeah, and then just to briefly give a synopsis from the 70s to like the noughties, like Planksty and like other bands like the Bothy Band were redefining music in the background with, you know, the hybrid of genres. But then some acts just became so global, like the likes of Clannad. They were like blending Irish folk vocal works that were just like obviously sibling harmonies. I don't know what it is, but again, Seamus and Kiva that I mentioned earlier, Clannad, they're all siblings, and there's something really raw about that in Irish music. And obviously Clannad gave us like global exports like Enya and Moya Brennan, who recently passed away as well. And then around that time in the 80s and 90s, Riverdance came on the scene.
And that's it.
And then so there's no going back.
Yeah.
There's no going back from there. Obviously composed by Bill Whelan. And yeah, it just is like it brought Irish music on a global scale bigger than ever before. Obviously, the whole era of digitization was coming to the fore as well, which helps it spread across the world. But I think when people saw that Riverdance in the Eurovision was it 94, 95, people are like, what is this? I need to know. And at that time, it was made cool. Like Michael Foley made Irish
I
dancing.
mean, my parents are like obsessed with Riverdance.
Obsessed.
Like obsessed, you know?
The first time I watched that video, I got goosebumps, and
Yeah.
I've never. Every time I watch it, I get goosebumps. Yeah, and then during like the Celtic Tiger years, like in the noughties, Riverdance was popping off around the world. People were paying to see it. It's just nonstop. And then again, we talked about it earlier, when we became when we were like teenagers, it had a little bit of a lull again. And then it brings us to this revival that kind of started 2010, early 2010s, if you want to go back a little bit. Instead of it, like treating it like this old culture that we need to bring back, people started treating it like a current culture. So yeah, that's like a really
It's a history lesson.
I was going to say it was a brief synopsis, but that was actually quite long, so sorry about that. But one thing that I don't really know much about Dre, and I'm hoping you can help me with this, is like to take it back to like pre what I talked about there.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the pagan times and those kind of festivals and what they might have been doing at the likes of like Samhain or Baltana. You've written a lot about this and interviewed a lot of people. So yeah, what does the pagan rituals in Ireland have to do with Irish traditional music?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Rachel. No, there's a few cultures or things that I thought that were really interesting, that I've been trying to kind of grab, but a lot of them are like quite seasonal, as you were saying. So yeah, there's a lot of pagan festivities that were kind of just consumed by Catholic festivities. So, you know, you have like your Baltana kind of coinciding with kind of the Easter kind of period, Samhain, Halloween, all of this kind of stuff, you know. And yeah, I think like looking back, I think about case in point is the other week on Bloomsday was one of the only chances where I could catch the Fingal Mummers, and Mummers are basically a subsect of kind of this like pagan ritualistic kind of process of the Ran, which is kind of like, or Wren Boys, which is basically a like tradition of like that. It's very, very interesting aesthetically. It's like these people with like straw hats on, kind of wearing kind of like sort of rags and kind of like a lot of straw. They might be sweeping, and there's kind of like there's a lot of in the Irish calendar of like welcoming in spirits, or like saying goodbye to spirits, or kind of like renewal or death, or this kind of thing. So the Fingal Mummers usually are around in like from like Stevens's day to like the turn of the new year, basically. And what they do is a lot of like marking renewal in the calendar and kind of saying goodbye to the old year, the old season, and kind of welcoming in the new one. And what the Wren would do, and the Mummers, you kind of go around, and it's kind of a little bit mischievous, but you're kind of like traditionally what they would do is basically they'd knock door to door and sing these kind of like pagan songs, or like there's like mummers plays which have like these like ditties and rhymes in, basically, that would be like a little bit mischievous, or would like, you know, tell you a bit of history, or maybe tell you a silly song, and then you would ask for money. But then at the end of this kind of procession around these towns, there would be like fake burials held, and that would kind of mark the end of a season, or the end of like, you know, the winter solstice, the darkest time in the Irish calendar, and kind of a looking forward into light and things like that. So there's also a part of like traditional Irish culture which has even been preceding kind of Catholic rituals, and has kind of been there through like paganism and through like the cycles of the calendar, and the death and revival of crops, of animals, and even of just light in the sky. So yeah, there's always that aspect as well.
Yeah, that like pre-Christian Ireland fascinates me, and I think it's having its own little like
Definitely.
there's layers of this. We could do like, I'd say, so many episodes on this, but that is having its own little mini revival, separately to just the generic Irish traditional music revival, and I think it's to do with the fact that there is no religion tied to it, which might be have more of a mass appeal now more than ever. But it's funny, like I remember things coming together like paganism, but also Christianity and music, because whenever I was in primary school on St. Patrick's Day, we would have the Armagh Rhymers coming, and they would do a performance, and they would have massive straw hats and like
very similar to the Mummers, yeah. Like these all came from the same family of kind of ritual, pagan ritual, basically.
Yeah, and like I was so fascinated by them. I just was like, it was nearly afraid of them when I was that age, because I was like, what are they doing? But they were dancing to Irish music. But then it was for St. Patrick's Day, which is obviously a Christian thing. And then we're also doing some Irish dancing. And yeah, then I'm playing tunes like they could have been feckin' O'Carolyn's, whatever, So it's just like this like mishmash of years of different cultures and traditions coming together, but all of them are tied together by music, which I think is really cool. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and right after this, we're going to curate our Dream Trad Festival. So I don't think you want to miss that.
No way, bro.
No, no way. Okay, right back after this. Okay, welcome back to the District Music Podcast, and now we're going to curate our dream Irish traditional festivals. I gave a little brief to Dre before this, but I was like, oh my God, I can't do it. This is really hard. So I said to give a modern trad act, a legacy trad act, a wild card booking, and a trad electronic crossover. So they're the 4 categories that I'm going to try and fill for this dream festival. Where would we have this festival, first of all?
No, I'd love like a Burren-based festival. I think that would look otherworldly. A Burren-based trad festival would be gorgeous, personally.
That would be
very nice.
Personal.
Personally. That would be what I'd do.
Personally. Where was the birth of Halloween again? Clachta. Yeah, Clachta, the Hill of Ward. So there were sacred bonfires in County Meath and the Hill of Ward. I think that would be a really cool place.
Get some sacred bonfires going.
Yeah. Clachta is spelled so weird. It's TLACHTGA. What?
It feels like is that like an anagram of Tala? That's what it sounds like when you spell it to me.
Maybe it is.
Great pronouncing that. I would have been like, I would have sounded like I'm like choking on my drink or something.
I honestly sound like I'm joking a lot today because I still have this bloody cough. Anyway, right. Well, I go into like some modern trad acts that I'd love to have
give
as
me
a
some
festival.
names.
Okay, so modern traditional acts, I would love to have Lankum on there. Like we all know Lankum, it's like kind of doom trad. They have the drone in there. Like I think they're probably one of the first ones to really get this modern revival going.
I think so.
One of the members of Lankum is also part of a band called Oxen. And that is Rady Pete. She is part of both bands, but Lankum and Oxen really give me that really cool, dark, doom trad energy, which I love.
The hairs are just standing up on the back of your neck, and you're kind of just like overcome by this like deep sense of like dread. You know?
How do you describe that feeling?
It's just like it's like this ominous, ancestral, almost like buzz. I don't know, hum almost.
But isn't it so mad that we both know what we're talking about?
Yeah.
But we both
indescribable almost,
don't know how to put it into words into the English language. It's only through music.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's crazy. I mentioned them about 5 times already. Seamus and Kiva, Iflaherta, the siblings. Guys, check them out because they are like, it's like harrowing. Again, I'm going to keep on trying to use words to describe the feeling I have of listening to these artists, but I'm actually not going to be able to do it justice. So like, please listen to these acts if you can. And then I also, 2 other acts I mentioned in this modern trad act are ones that we've talked about a lot. Madra Salak and the Ran. Madra Salak are kind of giving me a mixture of the Pogues and Lankum. And the Ran is more giving me Lankum, the doom trad, but then it bursts into these jigs and reels, which is really cool.
I feel like the Ran may be a bit more like traditional, like purists, a little bit more. Like with Madra Salak, there's a bit more nuance to their sound. Elements of folk, elements of like even rock and things like that.
Yeah.
Pulled in. And then the Ran is like really does feel like there's like, they're really pulling from the past and kind of making it their own, you know?
Totally. And we saw the Ran live recently
at our Future of Irish Music gig, and they were unbelievable. They were so good.
That was crazy. Remember we sat down on the ground and we were like, yeah, we're just going to sit down and enjoy this.
Get up.
And we all got up.
Get up.
Get the frick up. And we did. We danced our little socks off.
I got up and got down.
Do you want to add to that or will I keep going? What do you think?
I mean, if we're going like, obviously we spoke about Little Hush on this podcast before, kind of just like, a mixture of like electronic music and trad that I really like. Maybe like I really want to put on like Sisha Miller and people like that. I think like that's like just gorgeous, like eerie kind of like otherworldly aesthetic and sound, which definitely like then incorporates like your folk music, and then also like a little bit of trad. People like Pip Maloney, I think, as well, like really fantastic, kind of like gorgeous long like elongated like vocal sounds and stuff like that, also combined with like heavy synths, like elements of electronic music, but then also kind of at the crux of it is still like that kind of like Dukas inspired folk sound.
Yeah. And in my head right now, I've just thought of this right now, but like I'm putting them into categories of paganistic trad and
That's a great way of looking at it.
and like more like Irish traditional like music, like instruments kind of thing, or like pub and home trad culture, you know what I mean?
There's ones that you'd hear in the pub, and there's ones that you'd hear in like a ring fort.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're the two categories I'm
Yeah,
putting them
yeah.
in. And the likes of Saoirse Miller, like her EP Birds, that's so paganistic because it's like, as you said, like ambient, there's synths.
Feels like you could hear it like sailing on the wind
In
through
the
wood.
wind.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Guys, listen to her. But I also put Saoirse Miller, Pippin Maloney, and Roche all in that pagan, pre-Christian trad category. We've talked about Roche before. She adopts this whole keening tradition, which is a pre-Christian tradition of women who were hired at funerals to cry, and the word keening comes from a keenu, which is the Irish word of crying. So that is really interesting in itself. Again, blended with such cool electronic synths. There's just so much going on there. I actually listened to that album Milan on the way over to Slovakia there on Friday, and I was like, I haven't listened to this in a while, and again, a newfound appreciation every time I listen to it. But then the likes of Lullahush that you mentioned, you know, you can hear like the sean-nós, everyone sitting around someone in a pub or a home, listen to someone singing that. That it gives me that more of that energy. Just, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know how
definitely.
to name that
No,
category.
I
But
know what you mean.
you get
The people will know.
yeah, you know what I mean. We saw Lullahush together at Other Voices, didn't we?
Other Voices saw him, and then Electric Picnic was when I first saw him, and literally just stumbled upon it, and I was like, this is the best thing I've seen at the whole festival. It was my highlight of the entirety of Electric Picnic. It was so fantastic. Yeah.
Blending like this hardware electronic stuff with the live uilleann pipes and fiddle and everything. It was amazing. Well, I have two legacy acts. I said alive or dead in our very important brief, you know. The Chieftains. Chieftains like are one of those acts that, like, if you look up, like, has the Chieftains played with X? Yes, they have. Yeah. Have they played with Sting? Yes. Have they played with blah blah blah? Like anyone you think of, they probably have. So I think that would be a pretty cool festival act to get. But also, I was thinking Turlock O'Carolan.
Oh, gee.
Like, he's so welcome to this festival. Turlock,
Literally.
come on up to the stage. Come on up. Get your harp out.
He's the Apex Twin of traditional music. Like, that's what everyone calls him. And it's so true.
It is.
So true.
I also asked for like a wild card booking, but instead of a wild card booking, I actually am going to change that right now to sorry. You're like Rachel, tell me this before. To like underrepresented musicians. We need more queer trad, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, yeah.
Sexy Tig.
Queer trad has been great. My experience with queer trad has been fantastic, and
So
because
good.
of this artist right here.
Sexy Tig is an amazing artist that, you know, you don't know what they're going to wear on stage. It could be a dress, it could be a Louis Copeland suit, it could be whatever, but they have the deepest voice ever, and they are a trained fiddle Irish traditional player, and every time you go to their gigs, you have a great time.
I think like my favorite time seeing Sexy Tyke was when we did the literature festival. And were you there for this? Yeah. Were you
I
there?
wasn't there for
Oh, no,
Sexy
you had
Tig.
to go.
I was my
Yeah,
granny's birthday.
It was, oh my God, it was brilliant. So obviously literary festival, very like, you know, nice little like old ladies sitting down, and like maybe there's like the husband has been dragged along. He's kind of like just sitting there, like not really expecting anything. And yeah, or like everyone's there, everyone's kind of chilling. It's kind of just like, it's the literary festival, you know, people are there to read books and have a little natter, you know.
Yeah.
And the Sexy Tyke comes out, and they're like, you're in my house now, like and then everyone's up, everyone's dancing, everyone's like, I've never seen as many like 70-year-olds like jump out of their seat and kind of do that like marching like dance that kind of 70-year-olds do. Yeah, it was great. Like it just transformed the place.
Yup, let's go.
Yeah, I also want to shout out Rory. I think Rory Sweeney, like his album Old Earth that came out on Bandcamp was a fantastic like compilation of what traditional Irish music can be and can be like developed on. Like I think like there's elements of like hip hop there, but then also there's like that he's making songs with Roche, with Saoirse Miller, and yeah, like given that alternative sprinkle to that as well. So I think Old Earth is a fantastic album if people want to listen to that.
Yeah, Rory Sweeney.
Yeah,
is his name if you want to check him out. I think it's time to wrap this up and pick our track of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So you go first.
Okay, so my track of the week, I was thinking hard about this and I was like, well, what was I listening to when I was walking around Croatia, basically? I think like that was like, because sometimes you end up getting on a buzz and I think like maybe the city kind of reflects like what you're listening to, and it just happened to be that Ear is a band that I've been listening to quite a bit lately, and they are an American duo, kind of like electronic music. They've been getting a lot of buzz, but they recently have released a new album, and I was listening to it for the first time walking around, kind of like there's a little bit of that like indie sleaze element that we've seen coming back, but there's also like very delicate vocals, Yo-Yo, and yeah. So anyway, Ear's new album is called Rumspringer, and my song is called Ne Plus Ultra.
Okay, so my track pick of the week is a track from Cormac Begley. He's a concertina player, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, but I actually need to show you this after the pod, after we both go to the toilet, because we're both bursting. After we finish the pod and go to the toilet, I'll show you this. Cormac Begley, I first saw this video of him playing live at Other Voices Annam in 2023, and he's just playing the concertina, but he makes the concertina feel like it's a live animal. Like,
Whoa.
He is like, it's huffing and puffing. He's using the air in it that I haven't seen. He's using air as like a percussive element to play in it, and it's so cool.
So
like it's actually it's so innovative as well. It's really cool. But this track that he plays is called To War, and he actually wrote this as a present for his son. And his son has a really cool name. It's called Sauron, and Sauron is a Viking name meaning god of war. And yeah, he wrote the song To War, and it's a jig. Okay, that is it for the District Music Podcast episode 3, and we have talked all about the Irish trad revival. Why is everyone playing trad again? I think we kind of answered it.
We brought it back to the roots. We got real traditional.
That was really fun, Dre. Thank you.
It was very fun. Thank you.
I'm feeling very patriotic right now.
And I feel educated. You gave me a lot of stuff there.
I feel educated from you as well.
Was
but next week we're going to be chatting all about what makes a good album. So
the world of music creation.
Yeah.
In a world
of
music creation.
You should do voiceovers. What the hell?
We should do a podcast.
Oh my god, it's a great idea.
You're listening to District Music.